We're here at Spacecom. Couldn't be more excited. The second time that I've been at this convention, and I'll tell you, it is so heavily attended. So many folks here right now. Lots of vendors, lots of excitement about space here in the United Kingdom. Lots of fantastic information to bring to you. Lots of great content. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get to it. All right, folks, we've gotten an unexpected opportunity to interview ClearSpace about low Earth orbit cleanup. As you guys know, that's something I talk about on this channel continuously. So thank you very much for your time. Could you please introduce yourself to the viewers?
Yep. Hey everyone, my name is Rory Holmes. I am the Managing Director of ClearSpace in the UK.
So Dr. Holmes, thanks very much for your time today. Tell me, how are you guys going to pull this off? It seems to be such a huge, daunting task. There's thousands of pieces of debris up there, some of them bigger than others. We see kind of a little mock-up of what you intend to use up there.
Yeah.
Tell us about your plan, please.
Yeah, absolutely. As you know, the challenge we have at the moment is the amount of dead, defunct satellites and rocket bodies we have in orbit,
right,
traveling incredibly fast, crisscrossing each other's paths, sometimes colliding.
Right.
Yeah. So ClearSpace was really founded on the idea that we need to do something about this. So we were founded 5-6 years ago. Our sole mission is sustainable use of space. And how we do it, the engineers get a bit annoyed when I say it like this, but
right,
we go, we grab the bits of debris, we bring them down, we drop them in the top of the atmosphere where they safely burn up.
So if we're talking about a reusable system, I'm assuming that's what this
Absolutely.
is, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how many uses can we get? So it grabs it, tosses it into the atmosphere.
Absolutely.
How many times can it go through that process?
Well, absolutely. So as you can see, we have a capture system at the front, which is a
right,
big claw.
Right.
It goes and gives a big bear hug to the pieces of debris. We bring them down, drop them in the atmosphere. We go back and we get the next one. We're really limited on lifetime. So the lifetime of our service is what limits us, but we hope to do this many, many times as we go forward.
Gotcha. How much mass are we talking about per ClearSpace satellite?
Yeah.
How much room do they take up in a fairing? That sort of thing?
Yeah, so we're less than a ton. We need to take a lot of fuel with us. Moving these large debris around takes fuel. You've got to push and pull and
right,
travel sometimes long distances. So our satellites look quite big, but that's mainly because we're a fuel tank with claws.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Now, are your maneuvering thrusters, are they conventional chemical, or are you using ion or a combination, or?
It really depends on what we're doing. We have different mission concepts that rely on just chemical and others that rely on electrical as well. It really depends what we're trying to do. But as you can imagine, getting close to something and capturing something that's tumbling, you need a very high mobility in your satellite.
Right.
You need to be able to move quickly. You need to be able to match the rate of what you're trying to capture as well. So we have a lot of thrusters and a lot of fuel to help us do that.
Right. Now, do you suppose that the lifespan of the satellite might be extended if you could be refueled?
Absolutely.
A bit?
Absolutely.
Are you working with anybody on that idea now?
Yeah, absolutely. So our satellites are refuelable. We can refuel ourselves. We recently announced a memorandum of understanding with Orbit Fab, one of the
Fantastic.
leading.
Yes, we're very familiar.
Yeah, so one of the leading in-orbit refuelers. So we're really excited to work with them. Yeah, for us, if we can refuel, it just means we can do more missions and we
Right.
can remove more debris, and that's what we want to do. So that's great.
Now, recently, about a year ago, I interviewed the UK Space Agency about a in-orbit demonstration of removing space debris. You and Astroscale, I think,
Correct.
were the ones involved in that. Can you tell me about your demonstration? How is that going to go?
Absolutely. Well, this is a full-size mock-up of it behind us.
Right.
So we launch in.
Very big.
It's big. It's as I said, a big fuel tank with claws is what we have. So yeah, we are launching in 2026. So we're about 2 years away now.
Right.
We are going to remove 2 dead UK satellites from orbit. Then we'll refuel ourselves, and we'll go on to future missions.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That sounds very exciting.
It is.
Have you decided on a launch provider yet, or is this thing launch provider agnostic?
Well, we want to make it launch provider agnostic, but we're very lucky to be supported by the UK government, and we're really hoping that we'll launch from the UK with one of the new UK launchers as well.
Fantastic.
So yeah, that would be exciting.
Maybe Skyrora or Orbex or somebody like that, huh?
Yeah,
Boy, that's really exciting.
Yeah, I think the UK and the UK government has a leadership in space sustainability, and I think it's really important for us not only to develop the satellite, but also help promote the wider supply chain in the UK that'll support sustainability going forward. So yeah.
Fantastic. I'll tell you, this is, I mean, for one thing, the whole idea that your company was founded exclusively on the idea of cleaning up low Earth orbit,
Yeah.
such an important thing to avoid the disaster of the Kessler syndrome
Absolutely.
or something similar.
Yeah, yeah.
So I applaud what you're doing,
Thank
and I
you.
really appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, folks. As you well know, I have spoken a lot about space solar power, and now we have the folks who are heading up the project right here with us at Spacecom. Sir, would you be so kind as to introduce yourself to the viewers?
Thank you. My name is Martin Salto. I'm the co-founder and co-CEO of Space Solar, and we have a mission to develop space-based solar power as a UK-led but a very international program.
So tell me something. Recently, NASA said that none of this is really going to be possible until 2040, 2050, that sort of thing. But Britain seems to feel otherwise. So how did this get going in Britain to begin with?
Yeah. So originally we realized about 5 years ago that space-based solar power was becoming more economically as well as technically viable. And I took the idea to the government, the energy department, because net zero is a really key, important and urgent policy for the UK, but globally as well.
Right.
And it's clear that it's increasingly just unachievable with our current technologies. We really need to be looking at this more ambitious, more capable technology. And so we ended up doing a study, which I directed on behalf of Fraser Nash. I was involved in at the time. That was a techno-economic assessment of space-based solar power, a bit of a UK focus, but because it was a UK commissioned government project, but the economics came out looking very, very attractive. So it asked three questions really: is it technically viable? Is it economically affordable and viable? And what are the benefits for the UK in embarking on a development program, and could it be developed and scaled up to have a substantial difference to net zero in the sort of the mid-century timeframes? And the answers to all of those questions was a very, very positive yes. And so the government then very boldly launched it's a small scale but important innovation program, SPSB innovation program. A colleague and I set up a coalition of the willing in the UK called the Space Energy Initiative.
Right.
And this is an important organization. It's a collaboration or a coalition of leading energy, space, academia, industry, and the government, all working to make the ecosystem favorable to develop space-based solar power. And I think we did that for three reasons. Firstly, space solar power is this disruptive technology that needs to bring the space and the energy sectors together. Those two sectors previously had nothing to really, nothing much in common.
Right.
Secondly, we really needed to show the government that serious players were taking space-based solar power very seriously, because it's been previously, as you kind of indicated, a bit of an out there concept,
Right.
futuristic. And thirdly, there's no organization with the mandate to take forward a development program. So we needed to have this coalescing around a body.
So let me ask you something. NASA, as I mentioned before, just came out with this pretty well-known report at this point, talking about how space-based solar power, they talked about how maybe it could be done in the future, but really not for 20, 30 more years. Where have they got it wrong? Why are they wrong about this? And what is it that you folks are going to be able to do to make it possible now?
Yeah, it's a good question, because there have been three government commissioned studies that gave a very different picture. So the UK government report said it was feasible in these sort of timescales, and then European Space Agency commissioned two separate independent reports with a slightly different approach, which came out with very similar conclusions. I think the NASA report, firstly, probably it's that there are a lot of politics around NASA. NASA have studied space solar power on and off since the 70s. Repeated studies have shown that it's technically viable, but until recently not economically viable. And so I think there's a lot of history there. People who are understandably skeptical about space solar power. Possibly there's a worry that space solar power isn't in NASA's core remit of science and exploration. Could it take away budgets from other programs?
Right.
In the report, there are clear conclusions that perhaps didn't make it into the summary. But those conclusions underneath say that if you take more reasonable assumptions, then actually the economics of space solar power are very much in line with the European studies that it's viable.
Can you give me an example of what one of these specifics might be? Is it a simple matter of cost per kilogram? Did NASA shoot too high with $1,500 per kilogram? If so, how low do you think we can get it?
Well, they made some absurdly conservative assumptions. So the assumption that you're going to throw away the whole system with a very short lifetime. So in a 30-year time, you're going to rebuild it 3 times. It's just not the way you do it. So they've started with quite a negative view, or the authors of this report have anyway. Right. And it's easy to sort of shoot down something like this if you don't go into it with a mindset of how can this be possible, rather than what are the problems. Right. So I think, but as I say, within the report itself, it says if you actually make some more, perhaps arguably reasonable assumptions, the economics work out just as the Europeans have said, that it could be one of the most affordable sources of renewable energy, as well as being most capable. And I think a second point, and there are many points in the NASA report, but the second point is that it didn't think about space solar power in the wider mix, and how it makes possible a reliable and low-cost energy system, because space solar power is never going to be our only energy source. It's always going to be integrated with wind and solar and nuclear and others, and it interoperates really well with those intermittent renewables, avoids them having to be overbuilt, avoids the need for other technologies like kind of battery storage that just aren't commercialized at the moment.
So take us through the process of Project Cassiopeia, as we've heard it called anyway. How do we, from where we are now to getting a fully operational, let's say 2 gigawatt or something, solar power plant station up in orbit, how do we do that, and how long does it take?
Yep. So there's a lot of factors for success in developing space-based solar power. We believe that firstly, we need a commercial approach to this, led by a commercial company, but with strong support from leading governments, And that's one of the reasons, again, so why we've created the Space Energy Initiative and the support of the UK government. We need international partnerships. We need very capable technology, systems, and there's a number of systems out there. We happen to have chosen Cassiopeia because it's looking really, really head and shoulders above many of the others, but there are many viable systems, including some in the US. Our program is essentially a 6-year development. So we have, at the end of that point, we will have demonstrated megawatt scale power from space, which has got all of the end-to-end technologies demonstrated in the space environment. And at that point, the government here has said that they will be the kind of putting space-based solar power firmly into energy policy, into the net zero pathways. We've got the oil and gas companies, Shell and BP, confirming that they would be very much, putting this in their near-term roadmaps and so forth.
So in 6 years, you build a 1 megawatt station, and the government says then they'll go in, go all in on it as well. Is that kind of what we're looking at?
That's right. The government have an important role to play from now and in these early days. So it needs a lot of government support to bring the private finance in. And this is one of the main challenges of space solar power. It's quite difficult to start small because these systems tend to need to be in a high Earth orbit. The diffraction physics then means you need a very large system to be able to beam meaningful power into Earth. And so your first prototype is very, very large and expensive.
Right.
So in this way, it's different from kind of wind or something where you can build a small scale thing and get commercial revenue. Quite difficult to do that with space solar power. So it does need strong government financial support in the early days to leverage in the private.
Right. So take us through, how do you build that first prototype? I mean, obviously we don't need all the engineering details, but maybe just kind of a description for the layman of how do you build that in a higher orbit?
Yeah. Well, the first thing to say is the technologies are all reasonably mature at small scale and terrestrial technologies. So power beaming, the robotic assembly, so the second thing to say is that these systems are highly modular. So although they're many thousands of tons in mass as the fully operational systems, they're made of modules potentially no bigger than this table. And so the challenge is in the economics, being able to manufacture at scale and at the right economics all these modules and clip them together, have really high integrity rendezvous proximity operations and robotic systems to be able to do that safely and responsibly. And if you think of it like a large Lego model,
right,
then actually it's a challenge that it starts to become much more tractable. Although these systems are, many times the size of the International Space Station in dimension, maybe 50 to 100 times the size.
right.
They're actually only 5 times the mass, and so they're very sparse lightweight structures. Space Solar has done a lot of engineering work on you mentioned our Cassiopeia concept. We've done about £3 million worth of engineering work to really start to understand and define the details of the system, the technologies we're using to address the lightweight structures, the thermal management, the type of photovoltaics, and the whole integrated system.
And this unusual shape that we're looking at right now, why does it have to, I mean, it's an intriguing looking shape for this satellite, but why does it have to look that way?
If a solar power satellite is to deliver energy through the whole orbit continuously, you can imagine you've got to be looking at the sun the whole time to collect the energy. And then the transmitter has got to be looking at the rectangle on Earth the whole time. And as it goes around in the orbit, there's the changing angle between those two functions. So you've got to engineer this kind of rotational joint somehow. And different solar power satellite designs do that in different ways. You have John Mankin's SPS Alpha has many heliostats driving mirrors to constantly look at the sun. Others mechanically steer the solar arrays. With Cassiopeia, it's a sun pointing design, so that the reflectors are looking at the sun the whole time, and the energy beam is steered electronically, just like a sort of phased array radar, through 360 degrees to continually point at the Earth.
All right.
And so if you took the reason for the helical twist is just so that you get this constant aperture, however the orientation of the satellite, you've got a constant aperture, which is essential to form the continuous, the well-shaped beam of energy down to Earth.
Very intriguing. Okay, let's bring up one of the most common criticisms is this thing's going to get smashed to bits by micrometeoroids. What do we do about that? Or is that just an exaggeration? I mean, there are obviously micrometeoroids up there that will do occasional damage. I mean, how bad is that problem and how do we mitigate it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very serious problem in many orbits. So micrometeorites, but also kind of space debris,
Right.
man-made. Firstly, we're utilizing orbits which are low in debris, so highly elliptical orbits, geosynchronous orbits, which are away from geo and away from low Earth orbit.
Right.
The addressing we address this in a couple of ways. So firstly, this modularity, hundreds of thousands of modules, each with the functional ability to collect and convert and transmit the energy, means that if a module gets taken out by a micrometeorite, the rest of the system carries on. It's a graceful degradation. And so those are the two primary things: avoid the high risk orbits,
Right.
and have the key focus we're looking at the moment on the design of the modules is to make sure that if a micrometeorite hits it, it doesn't sprawl into more damage, more debris. So you've got to contain the avoidance of creating debris. This is all about sustainability. This program, the sustainability of Earth and sustainability of space, and so it's hugely important that we design both the technology and the operations to be fully sustainable.
Last question. People criticize some do anyway, the concept of the power beaming, that they say the microwaves are going to lose most of their energy going through the atmosphere, etc. First question is, and I think this is a simple yes or no, it's already been experimented with in orbit now, right? The power beam's already been done. Secondly, do you have a demonstration of your own coming up to where you're going to do something similar? And if so, can you tell me about that?
Yes, certainly. So, I mean, just to your first point, if you pick the right frequency in this atmospheric window, the loss through the atmosphere is almost nil.
Okay.
So that's well established. We have a demonstrator. It's a power beam demonstrator. It's replicated the helical structure of Cassiopeia, and we've just completed our first part of the demonstration in the anechoic chamber in Queen University Belfast, an important partner of ours. To bit of a world first to demonstrate 360-degree power beaming and keeping, with that constant aperture, whichever way you look at the satellite.
Right.
And so that's gone really well. And we're also demonstrating the kind of cooperative target retrodirective control as well. And again, so that's really exciting. We can tell you more about that.
And do you have an idea of when this is coming up, this particular demonstration? Because I've heard that you might make a bit of a media event out of it.
Yeah, we're hoping to get the broadcast media up to Queen's University Belfast, hopefully at the end of this month or so. So we'll let you know, John.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. Really appreciate your time today. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the viewers about what you're doing?
I think just to say this is a really important technology that is going to come, and it's up to us to make it happen, because it really can have a difference for net zero timescales. And I think the second thing is it's absolutely got to be an international collaboration, and it would be great to see where we started with the NASA report. It'd be really good to see the US involved in this, natural partner of the UK.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. And until this becomes reality, guys, I urge all of you to stay angry about space.